I remember the exact quality of light in that office. It was a Thursday morning in the city of London, or perhaps it was a financial district somewhere else. Because after enough years inside institutional finance, the offices begin to blur into one another. The same gray carpet, the same muted monitors, the same controlled atmosphere of professional calm, no matter what was happening on the screens. And on this particular morning, something significant was happening on the screens. A currency was collapsing. I will not name the country, because the country is almost beside the point. What matters is what I was watching and what I was feeling while I watched it. A government had made a series of monetary decisions, or had been forced into them, or had stumbled into them, depending on whose version of events you preferred. And the result was playing out in real time across the trading terminals around me. The exchange rate was moving in the wrong direction with the kind of velocity that makes experienced currency traders go quiet. Colleagues were on phones. Risk positions were being assessed. The controlled professional calm held, as it always did, because that is what the environment demanded. But the truth is that this scene could have been unfolding in many places. It could have been Venezuela, Argentina, Zimbabwe, Lebanon, Nigeria, Sri Lanka, Greece during the debt crisis. Different years, different currencies, different political explanations, yet the pattern is familiar. That is why the country is not important. These events are rarely unique. They recur, sometimes decades apart, sometimes repeatedly in the same places, whenever monetary systems are pushed past the point where confidence can quietly hold them together. And somewhere in one of these countries, ordinary people were waking up to find that their savings were worth considerably less than they had been the day before. Not because they had made a bad investment, not because they had been reckless, because a decision had been made somewhere above them that they had not been consulted about and could not have prevented, and the consequences of that decision had landed on them with the full and arbitrary weight of a system they had been told was working in their interest. I sat with that for a moment. Then the phone rang and I went back to work. That is the part that still stays with me, not the crisis itself, but the going back to work, the normalization of it. The way an institution full of intelligent, educated, motivated people could watch value being extracted from millions of ordinary lives and experience it as a market event rather than a moral one. I was not a bad person. My colleagues were not bad people. We were participants in a system that had taught us, with great efficiency, not to look at it too directly. It took me years to understand what I had actually been part of. Here is what I eventually understood. The fiat monetary system, the system of government-issued currencies unbacked by any commodity, managed by central banks, and expandable at the discretion of those in power, is not a neutral infrastructure. It is not a public utility designed for the equal benefit of all who use it. It is, in its deepest structural logic, a casino. And in this casino, as in all casinos, the house always wins. Not by cheating, not through corruption, though corruption certainly exists at its edges. The house wins because the rules were written before you arrived at the table. The house wins because it is the only player at the table who can add chips to its own stack whenever it chooses. The house wins because inflation, the steady, managed, institutionally endorsed erosion of your purchasing power, is not a malfunction of the system. It is the system's most essential feature. You have been sitting at this table your whole life. So have I. So has almost everyone we know. There's a concept in economics called the Candlon effect, named after an 18th century Irish-French economist named Richard Candlon, who noticed something that the modern financial establishment would prefer to remain technical and obscure. When new money enters an economy, it does not distribute evenly. It flows first to those closest to the source of creation, banks, governments, and the large financial institutions that operate in their immediate orbit. These recipients spend the new money before prices have adjusted, acquiring assets, making investments, expanding holdings. By the time the new money filters through the economy and reaches the ordinary worker's wage, prices have already risen. The purchasing power has already been redistributed. The worker earns more, nominally, and buys less actually. I spent years in foreign exchange risk insurance selling products that existed entirely because this system is unstable by design. My clients were businesses and individuals who needed protection from currency volatility, from the risk that the money they had earned would be worth less by the time they needed to spend it. Our industry existed because the monetary foundation beneath the global economy is not solid, and we charged handsomely for the scaffolding. I am not proud of that framing, but I am grateful for what it taught me. From the inside, you see the machinery clearly. You see how normal it has become to treat monetary instability as a permanent condition of the world rather than a choice made by those who benefit from it. This book begins from a simple and, I think, important premise. You are not bad at money. The money is bad. The gap between how hard you work and how much genuine financial progress you make is not a personal failing. It is an arithmetic consequence of holding your savings in an instrument that is structurally designed to lose value over time. The anxiety you feel about the future, the sense that no matter how diligently you save, the ground keeps shifting beneath you, is not irrational. It is an accurate reading of the situation. But here's what I have learned, and what this book is built on. The moment you see the game clearly, really see it, name it, understand its mechanisms, something changes. You stop being a passive victim of a system you did not design and cannot control. You begin, instead, to make choices. You become, in the most practical sense of the word, the creator of your own financial life rather than a character in someone else's story. You cannot reform the casino. I want to be honest about that. I have no interest in offering you a political program or a revolution. What I am offering you is simpler and more immediately useful. A door. That door is Bitcoin. Not Bitcoin as a speculative instrument. Not Bitcoin as a get-rich-quick scheme. Not Bitcoin as a technology for enthusiasts and ideologues. Bitcoin is a monetary system governed by rules that no human authority can rewrite. A fixed supply, a decentralized network, a set of first principles enforced by mathematics and energy rather than by promises and goodwill. For the first time in monetary history, there exists an alternative to the casino. An alternative whose rules were set in advance, published openly, and are not subject to revision by those who find them inconvenient. I found this alternative after a long journey through traditional finance, through the founding of yoga studios and an off-grid retreat in the French Alps, through years of traveling the world with my wife and daughters and watching what money, and the lack of it, and the corruption of it, does to real people in real places. I have watched inflation hollow out the savings of a Turkish restaurant owner. I have watched remittance fees consume a third of a migrant worker's monthly transfer home to her family. I have watched currency crises arrive like weather events, devastating and apparently unpredictable, in countries whose governments had been quietly debasing their currencies for years. And I have watched Bitcoin, volatile, misunderstood, imperfect, and structurally unlike anything that has come before it, offer something that the fiat system structurally cannot: a monetary foundation that does not erode. What follows is not a beginner's guide to buying Bitcoin. I have written that book. Bitcoin for Beginners is available at 2140chronicles.com if that is where you are starting. This book is for the reader who wants to go deeper, who wants to understand not just what Bitcoin is, but why the alternative to it is so broken, and what it means philosophically, practically, and personally to step outside a system that has been the unquestioned background of your entire financial life. We are going to name the invisible tax collector. We are going to trace the candle-on waterfall from the printing press to your wallet. We are going to examine the first principles of a monetary system built not on trust, but on mathematics. And we are going to talk about what it means to change your relationship with money at the level not just of strategy, but of identity. To move from victim to creator, from passenger to navigator, from tenant to owner. The game has been rigged for a long time, but now you know it is a game, and that changes everything. Let us begin. You are listening to Book 1 of the Bitcoin Life series. Exit the Casino by Michael McGilborn. Continue to Chapter 1. The casino has no clock,